Hey everyone, how you guys doing? It's SolarSteve, and as promised, I'm going to do a little video on some potatoes and show you guys what I've been doing. Certainly, if you listen to Blog Talk Radio and maybe you caught me talking to Doc about potatoes, about a 20-minute segment, and I kind of outlined why potatoes are an important staple crop and how easy they are to grow, and just a lot of the advantages of why, you know, anybody that's considering gardening should include the potato. So I thought I would just come down to the garden and show you guys kind of what I've been doing. Some of these potatoes have been planted as recently as about 3 weeks ago. Some of them were planted several months ago, and some of them have just been left in the ground since last October, November time frame, and have now come up as volunteers, if you will. And I'll be showing all of that. These here are onions. They're yellow storage onions that by this summer should be ready to come out. So that's what that is. What we're looking at here is my half row, and this is where I had Purple Majesties, one of my signature varieties that I'm doing right now. These actually did come up as volunteers, and they started coming up about 6 weeks ago. Now, about 2 months ago, we had 4 days of really freezing temperatures. I mean, it got as low as 14 degrees. So anything that was above ground during that time just got wiped out. So this is what has come back since then. And we did have a 31-degree night last week. So when you see some of this damage here, some of that damage that you see is from that one night of cold. So you can imagine what 14 to 25 degrees over 4 or 5 days did. It just destroyed everything that was growing. But they're way on their way back. These are all volunteers that were left from last year, with the only exception being this guy right here. This is actually a Yukon Gold that I had put in here just for filler, and you can see the size of that rootstock. I mean, no joke, this stuff was under my house for months since I harvested, and the roots and the shoots that they put out were just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, that thing's half the size of my pinky. It's just absolutely huge, and you can see that it's getting some top growth on it now. Leaf cluster, and then right next to it you see this is a little bud coming up, and then moving along to this little grove of potatoes here. Now, we have a lot of deer around here, and I was constantly last year fighting deer damage. So this time I come up with these little tunnels, and I just stake them in the ground and flex them over to create a little half circle. And it's just, you know, your normal wire fabric that, you know, you'd commonly get at your home and garden store or Tractor Supply or whatever. And so far it seems to be working very, very well, and quite inexpensive, I might add. You know, certainly you can see that I've done some, it's not like I haven't tried to keep the deer out of here. You know, I do have gates at those openings, but I mean, this is, at least this top wire is, you know, is about 6.5 feet tall. You know, they're still getting in here, so, you know, anyway. Okay, so this next row is a fresh planting. I had just done this row, and this variety is called Canela, and it's basically a russet type variety. They're really good for longer term storage. They are a late variety, maturing in about 120 days. But this particular plant we're looking at is a volunteer. It came back about 6 weeks ago it started growing. This is a Purple Majesty, but right next to it, right here, that's a Canella. And even those had some massive shoots on them too. Here's one that I planted that you can see is definitely budding, doing quite well. And I find that letting them produce shoots really accelerates their growth process. Here's one that I planted. You can see the shoot off to the left, but off to the right in the center of the picture is in fact a little bud that has poked out. And that's what they look like when they first start coming out of the ground. When I first started, my seed potatoes had nowhere near this level of activity. There was some shoots, but nothing like this. This is just a whole new experience for me, and so far it looks like things are going well. The plants that you see in this row that are taller, that actually have some leaf, those are all volunteer Purple Majesties. And as you can see, they are doing pretty well. I really can't complain much about it. There's another volunteer, and then you got that happy little grove right here. These guys are just thriving. In fact, at this stage, you would really want to begin hilling at this point when they're at this size. You'd want to hill probably to where my thumb is, if you can see that. And as the plant continues to grow up, you would continue hilling. I'd probably hill on this plant right to where my thumb's at, and let that top growth remain above. And as it gets taller, I would just keep hilling it. That is the secret to getting a lot of potatoes, because the roots aren't that far under the surface here. And the zone of tuber development is from where the roots begin, where the eyes of the potatoes begin to grow. That's where the roots develop. So between that part and whatever is covered with your hill, that's the zone where you're going to get your potatoes growing. So certainly the higher you can mound and let that thing go, the more development you're going to have. At the point when they begin to start to flower, that's when you stop hilling, and whatever you've done at that point is just the way it's going to be, because it's not going to matter. Once they start flowering, the development of the plant really goes more into tubers than to creating new vegetation. So, moving on. So we've got Canellas and a few Purple Majesties in this row. This next row, right here, has nothing in it yet. No, that's not true. You know what? This is actually the Canellas. Over here is going to be Red Vikings and the Purple Majesties. Hi, kitty. Hi, kitty cat. This is the guardian of the lower garden. I don't know how much good he does, but anyway. Okay, so these are the Canellas, and as I said before, we'll talk more about the Red Vikings in a minute. But let's see if we can find. Right here. This is probably about 3 weeks post-planting, and you can see just the smallest little bud beginning to emerge from where I've planted that. And so I don't know if you can really see the terrain here, but everywhere you see like a little hill, that's where a potato went. The soil isn't bad. Oh, look what we have here. Haha. Anybody know what that is? I sure do. And actually, it's a pretty good sized one too. Here you get a detail. Well, actually, there's a better example right here. Okay, we're going to have to segment this. We'll be right back.